What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack discovers she was never weak at all, only bound? For Isla Thorne, life had always been a quiet kind of suffering. Born Omega in the Silver Peak pack, she knew her place from the moment she could walk, below the alphas who commanded with a look, below the betas who enforced their will, even below the other Omegas who at least had families that didn't flinch when they entered a room. Her parents, Marcus and Helena Thorne, were respected betas. Her father served on the Alpha's council, her mother managed the pack's healing den. But they regarded their only daughter with something that looked disturbingly like fear. Isla learned early to make herself smaller, to speak softer, to never meet an Alpha's eyes, to fade into corners during pack gatherings and accept the scraps of affection thrown her way, like bones to a starving dog. The other wolves whispered about her. Strange, they said. Wrong. Her scent, lavender and morning dew with an undertone of wildflowers, was too soft, too delicate, too other for a world built on dominance and strength. But when the harvest moon ceremony arrived and Alpha Damon Blackthorn stood before the gathered pack to announce his chosen mate, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. The ceremony took place in the great clearing at the heart of Silver Peak territory, where ancient stone markers carved with the pack's history ringed a raised platform. Every wolf for 50 miles had gathered, their bodies pressed close in the autumn cold. The moon hung fat and silver overhead, and the scent of anticipation, sharp pine and nervous musk, hung thick in the air. Isla stood at the very back, tucked behind a group of younger wolves, trying not to exist. She'd worn her simplest dress, gray as ash, and braided her dark hair tight against her skull. Invisible. Safe. Alpha Demon Blackthorn was everything an alpha should be. 28 years old, standing, 6'4" with shoulders like a mountain range and eyes the color of molten amber. His scent, forest floor and dying embers, ozone and cold steel, announced his presence before he even appeared. He was power incarnate, and he knew it. My pack! His voice rolled across the clearing like thunder, silencing even the crickets. Tonight, under the harvest moon, I claim my mate. Isla's heart stuttered. Her wolf, usually so quiet she sometimes forgot it was there, suddenly stirred within her chest. A flutter. A whisper. No, she thought. Not possible. But Damon's eyes were scanning the crowd, and when they locked onto hers across 100 bodies, time stopped. The mate bond, that mystical, unbreakable tether between destined wolves, snapped into place with the force of a physical blow. Isla gasped, her knees buckling. She felt it like a golden thread wrapping around her ribs, pulling tight, connecting her to him in ways that transcended flesh and bone. Around them, wolves began to notice. Heads turned, whispers erupted like wildfire. Impossible! An Omega. The Alpha's mate is an Omega. Demon's face went through a series of expressions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally something cold and calculating. He stepped down from the platform, and the crowd parted for him like water. Each footfall was deliberate, measured. When he stopped 3 feet from Isla, his scent had changed. The steel had grown sharp, the embers had gone cold. Your name, he demanded. Isla Thorne, Alpha. Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. You feel it. Not a question. Yes, Alpha. A wave of power washed over the clearing as his authority pressed down on every wolf present. Submission, obedience, dominance made manifest. Isla's wolf whimpered, caught between the pull of the mate bond and the crushing weight of his rank. Demon's jaw clenched. He looked at her, really looked, taking in her slight frame, her lowered eyes, her trembling hands. Then he looked past her to where Beta Marcus stood with his mate, both of them frozen in horror. This, Demon said, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing, is a mistake. The words hit like shards of glass. Isla's breath caught. The moon goddess makes no mistakes, Alpha, someone said from the crowd. Old Meredith, one of the pack elders, her voice cracking with age and certainty. Then perhaps, Demon said, never taking his eyes off Isla, the goddess seeks to test me, to see if I will choose duty over destiny, choose strength over weakness. He took a step closer. The scent of his wolf, dominant, powerful, uncompromising, made Isla's knees weak. I am Alpha of Silver Peak. I will not be bound to an Omega who cannot stand beside me, cannot lead, cannot fight. I will not condemn my pack to weakness for the sake of biology. Demon. Wait, Meredith started. I, Demon Blackthorn, Alpha of Silver Peak Pack, reject you, Isla Thorn, as my mate. The formal words were ice. I sever this bond by my will and my right. You are nothing to me. The bond shattered. If the snap of connection had been a blow, the breaking was an explosion. Isla screamed. She couldn't help it, as agony tore through her chest. It felt like her ribcage was being pried open, her heart ripped out, still beating. The golden thread didn't just break, it shredded, leaving raw, bleeding wounds in her soul. She collapsed to her knees in the dirt, clutching her chest, unable to breathe past the pain. Through blurred vision, she saw Demon's face twist. He felt it too, she realized with grim satisfaction, but his jaw was set, his amber eyes hard. Remove her, he commanded. Two guards grabbed her arms, hauling her upright even as her legs refused to work. The pack watched in horrified silence as they dragged her from the clearing. Her parents didn't move, didn't speak. Her mother's face was pale, her father's expression unreadable. They took her to the pack borders, the northeastern edge where Silver Peak territory met the unclaimed wildlands. One of the guards, a scarred beta named Cormac, at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Alpha's orders, he muttered, not meeting her eyes. You're cast out, rogue. If you cross back into Packlands, you'll be killed on sight. It's winter, Isla whispered. I'll die out there. Cormac said nothing. The other guard, younger, crueler, smiled. They left her there as the first snow began to fall. Isla staggered forward on numb legs, clutching her chest where the bond wound still burned like acid. The cold bit through her thin dress almost immediately. She had no coat, no supplies, no shelter. Behind her, Silver Peak territory glowed with warmth and firelight. Ahead, the forest stretched dark and endless, already filling with shadow as the sun sank toward the horizon. Her wolf stirred within, weak and wounded. Run, it whispered. Survive. So Isla ran. She didn't know how long she stumbled. Through the trees, minutes, hours. The snow fell heavier, turning the world white and silent. Her fingers went numb first, then her toes. The dress she wore, meant for ceremony, not survival, clung wet and frozen to her skin. The rejection wound in her chest throbbed with every heartbeat, a constant reminder that she'd been deemed unworthy even by fate itself. When she finally collapsed, it was beside the ruins of an old barn, its roof half caved and walls barely standing. She crawled inside through a gap in the rotted wood, found a corner where the wind cut less sharp, and curled into herself. This is it, she thought with strange clarity. This is how I die. Her parents' faces flashed through her mind, the way they'd looked at her tonight, not surprised, not heartbroken, almost relieved, as if they'd been waiting for exactly this. The cold crept deeper. Isla's breathing slowed. Her wolf had gone silent, conserved what little strength remained. Snow drifted through the broken roof, settling on her dark hair like a burial shroud. Her eyes closed. Warmth. That was the first thing she noticed as consciousness reluctantly returned. Warmth and the sensation of being surrounded, protected. Isla's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she couldn't process what she was seeing. Wolves, massive wolves, their bodies pressed close around her in a living barrier against the cold. 1, 2, 3. She counted them as her vision focused. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 enormous wolves, each one larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, their fur ranging from midnight black to silver gray to russet red. They were watching her, gold eyes, green eyes, amber eyes, all fixed on her with an intensity that should have been terrifying, but somehow felt like coming home. The largest one, black as pitch with eyes like molten gold, lay directly in front of her. As she met his gaze, he shifted. The transformation was fluid, effortless. Bones flowed. Rather than cracked, fur receding like water, until a man knelt where the wolf had been. He was older than Demon, perhaps 35, with shoulder-length black hair shot through with silver and a face carved from granite. Scars crossed his skin, a white line down his left cheek, another across his collarbone, but they didn't diminish him. They made him look like what he was, a warrior. His scent hit her like a physical force, aged oak and winter snow, pine forests and gathering storms, and it made her wolf, silent for so long, suddenly lift its head with interest. "We've been waiting for you," he said. His voice was deep, rough, carrying an accent she couldn't place. Isla tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. She managed only a rasping sound. The man, he was naked, she realized, though he seemed utterly unconcerned, reached behind him and pulled a fur cloak from somewhere, draping it over her shaking frame. "Don't try to talk yet. You were nearly dead when we found you." "Who?" she managed. "My name is Kieran Ashwood. And these," he gestured to the 9 massive wolves still surrounding them, "are the Shadow Guard. We've been searching for you for a very long time, Isla Thorne. You know my name. We know everything about you." Kieran settled back on his heels, uncaring of his nudity or the cold that made Isla's teeth chatter even through the warmth of the wolves. "We know you were rejected tonight. We know you were cast out to die. We know your parents bound your power when you were an infant, terrified of what you might become." The words didn't make sense. Isla shook her head, immediately regretting it as dizziness washed over her. "Bound? I'm just an Omega. I don't have power." Kieran's smile was sad. "You were never Omega, little queen. You are matriarch, the prophesied one, and your parents, in their fear and ignorance, crippled you before you could even walk." "That's impossible." "Is it?" Kieran leaned closer, his storm and oak scent wrapping around her. "Have you never wondered why you feel everything so deeply? Why you can sense emotions before they're spoken? Why wounds heal faster in your presence? Why plants grow greener where you walk? Your empathy, your healing touch. Those aren't Omega traits. They're the gifts of the matriarch, leaking through even the strongest bindings." Isla's breath came shallow. Memories flickered. The way injured animals sought her out. How her mother's patients always requested she be present during difficult healings, even though Isla was never supposed to be strong enough to help. The strange dreams of running beneath the moon in a body too large, too powerful to be hers. "The prophecy," Kieran continued, "is old, older than Silver Peak, older than the pack structure you know. It speaks of a wolf born under the dark moon, blessed by the goddess herself. She would rise when the packs had grown corrupt, when strength was valued over wisdom, when the old ways had been forgotten. She would be marked by suffering, tempered by rejection, and awakened by betrayal." His golden eyes bore into hers. "When your mate rejected you, Isla, he didn't just break your heart, he shattered the binding your parents placed on your soul." As if summoned by his words, Isla felt something stir deep inside her. Not her wolf, something else, something vast and ancient and utterly other. It unfurled like a flower opening to the sun, and with it came power that made her gasp. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Your true self is waking up," Kieran said, "and when she rises fully, little queen, the world will kneel." The change started small, a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the wolves surrounding her. It spread outward, filling her limbs, driving back the cold, the pain, the exhaustion. Isla's wolf, so quiet and weak her entire life, suddenly roared to life with a voice that shook her to her core. "Mine," it said, not a whisper, a command. This body, this power, mine." "Let her come," Kieran urged, moving back to give her space. Around them, the 9 other wolves rose, their eyes glowing with anticipation. "Don't fight it. Let your wolf rise." Isla tried to hold on, tried to stay in control, but the power building inside her was a tsunami, unstoppable and absolute. Her bones began to shift, not the agonizing crack and reform of a normal change, but something fluid. Her bones flowed like water, reshaping, lengthening. Fur erupted across her skin in a wave of silver and white that caught the moonlight and reflected it back 100-fold. She was growing. Every shifter was larger in wolf form than human, but this was different. Isla's body expanded, muscle layering onto muscle, her frame becoming massive, powerful, undeniable. The barn ruins creaked as her transformation continued, her head brushing the collapsed roof, her paws, huge, tipped with claws like ivory daggers, sinking into the frozen ground. Energy erupted from her in visible waves, rippling outward. The barn disintegrated, unable to contain the force of her presence. Snow vaporized in a perfect circle around her. The very air seemed to shimmer and bend. When the transformation finished, Isla stood 4 feet at the shoulder. Her fur was pure silver white, each strand catching light like starshine. Her eyes, moon above, her eyes blazed with ethereal blue fire, a color no natural wolf had ever possessed. She could feel everything, every heartbeat of the 10 wolves around her, every living thing in a 100-yard radius, the pulse of the earth itself beneath her paws. She opened her mouth and howled. The sound was primal, ancient, carrying notes no wolf throat should produce. It rolled across the landscape like an earthquake, shaking snow from trees, sending small animals fleeing in terror, echoing off distant mountains. In Silver Peak territory, miles away, wolves stopped in their tracks, their instincts screaming. Recognition and submission at something far beyond their understanding. When silence fell, Kieran shifted back to human form, dropping to one knee in the snow. His voice was reverent. "Behold the matriarch, behold the queen of wolves." One by one, the 9 other wolves followed his lead, shifting to human form. 4 men and 5 women, all scarred warriors, all kneeling in the presence of power that transcended pack law and hierarchy. Isla's wolf wanted to bask in their submission, but the human part of her mind was still reeling. She shifted back, the transition smooth as silk this time, and found herself kneeling naked in the snow, staring at her own hands as if they belonged to a stranger. "What am I?" she whispered. Kieran rose, retrieving clothing from a pack she hadn't noticed before. As he helped her dress, simple trousers and a tunic, warm and practical, he explained, "The packs were not always as they are now. Once there were no alphas, no betas, no omegas. There were only the blessed and the unblessed. The blessed were those touched by the moon goddess herself, given power to protect the packs, to maintain balance, to serve as bridges between wolves and the divine. The matriarch was the highest of the blessed, a wolf capable of commanding any other, of healing wounds thought fatal, of reading hearts and minds, of enforcing peace or waging war as needed. One of the other wolves, a woman with russet hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. "I'm Sarah," she said softly. Her scent was warm cinnamon and fresh bread. "The prophecy has been passed down through my family for 6 generations. We've been waiting for you." "All of you?" Isla asked, looking around at the 10 warriors. "All of us," Kieran confirmed. "We are the last of the unchained, wolves who rejected pack politics and hierarchy to preserve the old ways. When the prophecy spoke of the matriarch's return, we swore our lives to finding her, protecting her, serving her." His gold eyes met hers. "We felt your awakening the moment the rejection broke your binding. We were already on our way when you collapsed." Another guard, a huge man with gray-streaked brown hair and a scar across his throat that should have killed him, rumbled, "I'm Torben. Been tracking across 3 territories for 2 months following the prophecy's signs. Led us right to you." They introduced themselves one by one. Lyra, small and deadly with white blonde hair. Castor and Pollux, twin brothers with matching grins and ash-gray fur. Rhiannon, whose violet eyes marked her as descended from the ancient bloodlines. Fennec, young and nervous but fiercely loyal. Asha, who moved with a dancer's grace and carried more knives than seemed physically possible. And Orin, the quietest of them, whose green eyes saw too much. "Your parents," Kieran said, his voice gentle but firm, "bound your power using forbidden magic. Blood magic. They performed the ritual when you were 3 months old, tying your true nature in chains that should have held for life. They thought they were protecting you, or perhaps protecting themselves from you. Either way, they crippled their own daughter and condemned her to a life of weakness and suffering." Rage, hot and clean and righteous, flared in Isla's chest. Her wolf snarled in agreement. "The binding could only be broken by a severance of equal magnitude," Kieran continued. "A mate bond rejection, the shock of it, the trauma, shattered the chains your parents forged, which means Demon Blackthorn, in his arrogance and cruelty, gave you the greatest gift possible. He set you free." "I don't feel free," Isla whispered. "I feel lost." "Then we'll help you find yourself," Sarah said, moving to sit beside her. "That's what we're here for." The compound where the Shadow Guard lived was 3 days' travel into the unclaimed wildlands. In a valley so hidden, Isla would never have found it without guidance. Stone buildings huddled against a mountainside, weathered but strong, surrounded by walls that had stood for centuries. Inside, the comfort was sparse but warm. They gave Isla a room in the main lodge, nothing fancy, just a bed, a hearth, and a window overlooking the training grounds. But it was hers, the first space in her life that belonged only to her. The training started immediately. "Shifting is about control," Kieran explained on the first morning, standing opposite her in the snowy yard. "You managed your first transformation on instinct and adrenaline. Now you need to master it." Isla closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. It was right there, no longer a distant whisper, but a presence so vast she could hardly comprehend it. "Ready?" she asked. "Always," her wolf replied. The shift came easier this time, though still with that strange flowing quality. When she opened her eyes again, she stood on 4 legs, seeing the world through the enhanced senses of her wolf form. Scents exploded in complexity: Kieran's storm and oak, Sarah's cinnamon warmth, the snow's clean bite, distant pine. She could hear heartbeats, breath, the rustle of a rabbit 200 yards away. "Good," Kieran said, circling her slowly. In his human form, he seemed small compared to her wolf. "Now shift back." It took 3 attempts. The first 2 times she got stuck halfway, a horrible sensation of being caught between forms. But on the 3rd try, she found the mental trick of it, the way to guide the flow rather than force it. She shifted back to human, stumbling slightly as she adjusted to 2 legs again. "Better," Kieran said. "Again." They practiced for hours. Shift, hold, shift back, over and over until Isla could manage it smoothly, until her wolf form felt as natural as her human one. The other abilities were harder to control. "You're an empath," Rhiannon explained one evening, settling cross-legged across from Isla in the common room. "You can feel emotions, intentions, sometimes even thoughts if the connection is strong enough. But right now you have no shields. Everything just pours into you." "How do I build shields?" Isla asked, already exhausted from a day of accidentally absorbing everyone's feelings. "Meditation, visualization, practice." Rhiannon's violet eyes were kind. "Imagine a wall in your mind, not to block everything out, you'll always feel some of it, but to filter it, to let you choose what you allow in." It took days before Isla managed even the flimsiest barrier, but when she did, the relief was immense. The healing came more naturally. When Fennec injured his shoulder during combat practice, Isla felt the pull immediately. She placed her hands on the wound, and power flowed from her like water. Golden light visible even in daylight. The torn muscle knitted itself back together in seconds. Fennec stared at her in awe. "I've heard stories of healers, but I've never seen anything like that." "The matriarch's healing is different," Sarah said, watching with approval. "It doesn't just mend flesh, it restores. It makes things better than they were." But the most terrifying ability was the command, the alpha voice taken to its absolute extreme. "Say something," Kieran urged during one training session. "Give me an order." "I don't want to," Isla protested. "You need to learn control. Say it." She sighed. "Kieran, sit down." The power in her voice was unmistakable. It rolled out like a physical force, layered with authority that transcended simple dominance. Kieran's legs buckled immediately, and he hit the ground hard, his expression shocked. "I'm sorry," Isla gasped. He climbed back to his feet, shaking his head in wonder. "Don't apologize. That was perfect. Do you understand what just happened? You gave me a command, and my body obeyed before my mind could even process it. Even the strongest alpha can't do that." Days turned to weeks. The winter deepened, but inside the compound, Isla felt warmth-free. The first time in her life. True warmth, from people who saw her not as weak or wrong, but as exactly what she was meant to be. She bonded with each of the Shadow Guard in different ways. Sarah taught her to cook, their conversations ranging from recipes to philosophy. Torben showed her how to track, his massive hands surprisingly gentle. The twins, Castor and Pollux, made her laugh with their constant pranks and competitions. Lyra taught her to move silently, to blend with shadows. Rhiannon shared meditation techniques and old stories. Fennec's enthusiasm was infectious as he showed her every hidden corner of the valley. Asha's knife-throwing lessons were equal parts terrifying and exhilarating. Orin barely spoke, but his presence was steady, comforting. And Kieran was different. He pushed her hardest in training, but was also first to notice when she needed rest. He challenged her assumptions about power and leadership, but listened when she pushed back. His scent, storm, and oak in wild places had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. One night, 6 weeks after her transformation, Isla found him on the compound walls, staring out at the moonlit wilderness. "Can't sleep?" she asked, climbing up to join him. "Old habits. Guard duty never quite leaves you." He glanced at her, and even in the darkness, his gold eyes caught the light. "You're doing well. Better than we'd hoped. I'm still terrified half the time." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He paused, then said carefully, "There's something you should know. About mate bonds." Isla's chest tightened reflexively. The wound from Demon's rejection had healed, but the memory still stung. "The bond you felt with Blackthorn," Kieran continued, "that was fate, destiny, the goddess pairing souls. But it's not the only kind of bond possible." "What do you mean?" "Chosen mates," he said. "Wolves who select each other, not because fate demands it, but because they want to. The bond is different, built on choice, on respect, on partnership. In some ways, it's stronger than a fated bond because it's made, not given." Isla's heart began to pound. "Why are you telling me this?" Kieran turned to face her fully. In the moonlight, the silver in his hair shone bright, and the scars on his face looked like badges of honor. "Because I'm 243 years old, Isla. I've lived 6 human lifetimes. I've led armies, I've watched empires rise and fall, and I have never, not once, met someone who makes me want to build rather than just protect. Until you." The scent of emotion hung thick in the air between them, hope and uncertainty and something deeper, something that smelled like coming home after a long journey. "I'm not asking for anything," Kieran said quickly. "You've been through hell, and you're still finding yourself. I needed you to know, when you're ready, if you ever want to explore what a chosen bond might feel like, I'm here. No pressure. No expectations." Isla reached out, taking his scarred hand in hers. "I'm not ready yet," she admitted, "but I think I'd like to be. Someday. With you." His smile was sunrise breaking over mountains. "Someday works for me, little queen." They stood together on the wall, hands joined, and watched the moon cross the sky. 2 days later, everything changed. Orin burst into the common room where Isla was helping Sarah prepare dinner, his green eyes wild. "Scout approaching from the southeast. Moving fast, he's seen us." Kieran was on his feet immediately, already moving toward the door. "1 scout or more?" "Just 1, but he's running. He'll reach Silver Peak territory in an hour, maybe less." Isla's blood ran cold. "They'll know I'm alive." "More than that," Kieran said grimly. "They'll know what you are. Get to the walls. Everyone, battle positions." The compound transformed into organized chaos. The Shadow Guard armed themselves with ruthless efficiency, swords, bows, knives. Isla had learned basic combat, but nothing that would matter in a real fight. She felt useless as warriors moved around her with centuries of experience. "Stay inside," Kieran ordered, already heading for the gates. "No," Isla said. "If they're coming for me, you should stay alive." His gold eyes flashed. "Please, Isla, we can handle a scouting party." But it wasn't just a scouting party. The enemy arrived at dusk the next day. 23 wolves, moving in tight formation. Isla watched from the walls as they poured into the valley, their howls echoing off the stone. At their head was Demon Blackthorn, his massive gray form unmistakable even at a distance. And beside him, a wolf Isla recognized with sinking dread, Vivian Ashcroft, the pack's most ruthless fighter, beautiful and cruel in equal measure. Her fur was deep auburn, her eyes amber fire. Her scent, cinnamon and iron and blood, carried even to the compound walls. "They brought an army," Fennec whispered beside Isla. "They brought a war party," Kieran corrected, his voice hard as stone. "There's a difference." He called down to the approaching wolves, his alpha voice carrying effortlessly across the valley. "This is neutral territory. You have no authority here." Demon shifted to human form, unconcerned with his nudity in the freezing air. Even from a distance, Isla could see how he'd changed in the weeks since the rejection. Thinner, harder. His scent carried notes of regret now, mixing with the steel and embers. "I claim no authority," Demon called back. "I claim only what was stolen from me. The Omega belongs to Silver Peak. Return her, and we leave in peace." "The Omega," Kieran said with dangerous calm, "doesn't exist. She never did. You rejected her, cast her out, left her to die. What happens after is none of your concern." Vivian shifted as well, all curves and predatory grace. "The little pup who couldn't defend herself? Please. She's probably dead already. But if by some miracle she survived, she's rogue. And rogues are executed on sight." Isla felt her wolf surge with rage at the mocking tone. Without thinking, she vaulted over the wall, landing in the snow with fluid grace. The shadow guard shouted in alarm, but she ignored them, walking forward until she stood beside Kieran. The recognition on Demon's face was immediate and visceral. His eyes went wide, his mouth falling open. Isla. She'd changed so much in 6 weeks. Proper food and training had added muscle to her frame, made her stand straighter, move with confidence instead of fear. Her scent had transformed too. Lavender and wildflowers remained, but now layered with something else. Power, authority, undeniable presence. "Not Isla," she said, and her voice carried the weight of her wolf. "Not anymore. Not the frightened Omega you threw away like garbage." Vivian laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Look at you playing. Pretend with these rogues. Do you think a few weeks of hiding makes you special? You're still just a weak little—" Isla shifted. The transformation took 3 seconds. When she stood before them in her wolf form, silver white, 4 feet at the shoulder, eyes blazing with blue fire, the laughter died instantly. A wave of power washed over the assembled wolves, forcing every one of them back a step. Vivian's expression shifted from mockery to shock to fear in rapid succession. Demon's legs actually buckled before he caught himself. "She is matriarch," Kieran said into the stunned silence. "She is the prophesied queen. And you made a mistake, Alpha Blackthorn. You didn't just reject your mate, you rejected destiny itself." For a moment, no one moved. Then Vivian, either brave or foolish, snarled and shifted, launching herself at Isla with claws extended. It was over in seconds. Isla didn't need training or experience. Her wolf moved on pure instinct, sidestepping the attack with contemptuous ease, then catching Vivian by the throat mid-leap. One massive paw pinned the auburn wolf to the ground, claws dimpling but not breaking the skin at her jugular. Vivian thrashed once, then went still as Isla's weight settled over her, utterly immobilizing. The message was clear. "I could kill you without effort. I'm choosing not to." Isla shifted back to human, kneeling over Vivian's wolf form. "You called me weak," she said softly. "You mocked me, humiliated me, made my life hell for years because I was born different." She pressed down slightly, and Vivian whimpered. "I could end you. It would be so easy, but I'm not you." She rose, stepping back. Vivian scrambled away, shifting to human and curling into herself, her amber eyes wide with terror. Behind them, the shadow guard shifted as one. 10 wolves emerged, but these were not normal wolves. They were dire wolves, each one nearly as large as Isla herself, their forms crackling with ancient power. Torben's brown fur was shot through with silver that glowed in the fading light. Sarah blazed like living flame. The twins moved in perfect synchronization, their gray forms identical and terrifying. Demon's war party broke. Wolves scattered in every direction, their courage evaporating in the face of the Shadow Guard's true forms. Only Demon remained, frozen in place, his amber eyes locked on Isla. "Please," he whispered, "mercy." Isla walked toward him slowly. Every wolf present, friend and foe alike, watched in breathless silence. When she stood before her former mate, She looked down at him with eyes that had seen death and survived, that had discovered power and mastered it. "You don't deserve mercy," she said, "but I'm going to give it to you anyway, not because you've earned it, but because I choose to be better than you." Demon's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand." "You understood perfectly." Isla's voice was hard. "You understood that I was weak, and you chose power over me, over us, over what we could have been." She took a breath. "But your rejection freed me. You gave me the greatest gift possible, even if you didn't mean to. For that, I won't kill you. But I will give you something to remember." She placed her hand on his bare chest, directly over his heart, and let power flow. Not healing this time, marking. A silver symbol blazed into existence on his skin, burning itself into flesh and soul, both. It was the ancient mark of judgment, visible to any wolf who looked at him. "This mark," Isla said, "declares your failure. Every wolf who sees it will know you rejected your fated mate, chose pride over destiny, and lived to regret it. Wear it as a reminder that power without wisdom is worthless." Demon collapsed to his knees, sobbing openly now. Isla turned to address the scattered remnants of his war party. Her voice carried to every corner of the valley, layered with power that made even the Shadow Guard shiver. "Hear me, Silver Peak wolves. Hear me, all packs within the sound of my voice. I am the matriarch. I am the prophesied queen, blessed by the moon goddess herself, risen to restore balance and justice to our kind. This territory is mine. These lands are under my protection. Any who enter seeking war will meet the fate they deserve. But any who enter seeking sanctuary, seeking justice, seeking the old ways and true peace, you will find it here." She gestured to the compound behind her. "I declare this place Silverhaven, a refuge for the hunted, a home for the lost, a stronghold for those who reject the cruel hierarchy that values rank over worth, strength over kindness. The old laws are dead. I am writing new ones." Her eyes found Demon again. "As for you, former Alpha, you may return to Silver Peak. Keep your title, keep your pack. But know this, your authority ends at your borders. You have no power here. And if you ever threaten mine again, judgment will be far less merciful." She looked at Vivian, still curled on the ground. "You are stripped of rank. No longer beta, no longer warrior. You will serve as Omega in your pack until you learn that cruelty is not strength and humiliation teaches nothing but hatred. Maybe you'll survive it. Maybe you'll learn. Either way, you're Demon's problem now." Finally, she addressed the whole group one last time. "Go. Take your wounded pride and your broken assumptions and leave. This is your only warning." They fled. Even Demon, marked and shamed, shifted and ran with his tail tucked low. Within minutes, the valley was empty except for the Shadow Guard and their queen. Kieran shifted back to human, his gold eyes blazing with pride and something deeper. "That," he said, "was extraordinary." Isla's legs suddenly felt weak. The adrenaline drained out of her all at once, and Kieran was there, catching her before she fell. "Easy," he murmured. "You just faced down an Alpha and his war party, declared yourself queen, and rewrote pack law. You're allowed to be tired." "Did I really just do that?" she whispered. "You did." Sarah appeared with a cloak, wrapping it around Isla's shoulders. "And you were magnificent." The other guards clustered close, their expressions ranging from awe to fierce satisfaction. They'd followed prophecy on faith, but now they'd seen proof of what their queen could become. That night, they gathered in the common room, a fire roaring in the hearth. Isla sat surrounded by her found family, these warriors who'd given up everything to find her, protect her, believe in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "What happens now?" Fennec asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Isla looked around the circle of faces, scarred, hopeful, loyal. She thought of Demon's mark burning into his skin, of Vivian's terror, of the refugees who would surely come now that word had spread of a new power in the wilderness. "Now," she said, "we build, we create the world we want to see. We teach the old ways, the true ways. We show wolves that hierarchy doesn't require cruelty, that strength can protect instead of dominate." She met Kieran's eyes across the fire. "We become what we were always meant to be." "And if the packs unite against us?" Orin asked quietly. "Then we remind them, Isla said, that the matriarch has risen, and she has no intention of kneeling ever again. The winter passed into spring, and with it came change. Wolves began to arrive at Silverhaven's borders, first a trickle, then a flood. Omegas fleeing abuse, betas questioning authority, even a few alphas tired of the constant political battles seeking something more meaningful. Isla welcomed them all, but made the rules clear. Rank meant nothing here. Action mattered, character mattered. Those who came to dominate were turned away, those who came to contribute were embraced. The compound expanded, new buildings rose, training grounds multiplied. Healing Den appeared, run by former pack healers who'd been dismissed for being too soft. A school was established where young wolves learned not just combat, but history, philosophy, healing arts. And through it all, Isla grew into her power. She settled disputes with wisdom beyond her years, healed wounds physical and emotional, commanded when necessary, but led with compassion whenever possible. Her scent, lavender and wildflowers and something ineffably other, became synonymous with safety. Kieran stood beside her through all of it, her second in command, her closest advisor. Their bond deepened naturally over months of shared work and quiet moments. No grand declarations, no dramatic gestures. Just a slow, steady building of trust and affection that felt more real than any fated connection. One evening, 6 months after her transformation, Isla found him in the garden behind the main lodge, tending to the spring planting. "Hey," she said, settling beside him in the dirt. "Hey yourself." He didn't look up from the seedlings he was carefully spacing. "Come to supervise my farming?" "Come to ask a question." That got his attention. He turned, gold eyes questioning. Isla took a breath. "You said once that chosen mates build their bond on choice and partnership, that it's made, not given." "I remember. I've been thinking about that, a lot." She reached out, taking his soil-stained hand in hers. "I think I'm ready to build, to choose, if you still want to." Kieran's smile could have lit the night. "Little queen, I've been waiting for you to be ready since the moment I found you dying in that barn." "I'm not little anymore." "No," he agreed, pulling her close. "You're magnificent, and you're mine if you'll have me." "I will." She kissed him then, tasting earth and spring and promise. When they pulled apart, she felt it, not a bond snapping into place like it had with Demon, but something warmer, slower, growing from shared choice and mutual respect. A golden thread, yes, but one they were weaving together. The choosing ceremony happened under the full moon a week later. All of Silverhaven gathered to witness as Isla and Kieran stood before their people and spoke their vows. No pack politics, no forced destiny, just two wolves choosing each other freely. When they exchanged mate marks, glowing symbols that appeared on their shoulders, intricate and beautiful, the assembled wolves howled their approval. Isla's mark was a crescent moon surrounded by stars. Kieran's was an oak tree with roots that became wolf paws. Together, they represented what they'd built: ancient wisdom and new growth, power and protection, choice and commitment. But even in moments of peace, Isla remained vigilant. She felt the gathering storm before anyone else did. It came in dreams first, visions of a blood moon rising, of shadows that moved with purpose, of a presence old and hungry, stirring in the deep places of the world. Her wolf, so confident now, whimpered in sleep. Kieran woke her from one such nightmare, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "What is it?" "Something's coming," Isla whispered. "Something worse than pack politics or wounded pride, something ancient." "The prophecy mentioned this," Rhiannon said from the doorway. She'd become Isla's closest advisor on matters of the old magic. "After the matriarch rises and claims her throne, the old enemies will wake. The things that were sealed away when the first packs fell will come to test whether she's strong enough to hold the line." "What kind of things?" Isla asked, though part of her already knew. "The Forsaken," Rhiannon said quietly. "Wolves who turned from the goddess, who embraced dark magic and became something else, something wrong. They were defeated centuries ago, sealed in the deep earth. But seals don't last forever, especially when the balance shifts." Isla climbed out of bed, moving to the window. Outside, Silverhaven slept peacefully, under a waning moon. Her people, her responsibility. "Then we prepare," she said. "We train harder. we build stronger, and when they come, we show them what happens when you threaten what the matriarch protects. Kieran joined her at the window, wrapping an arm around her waist. We'll be ready. We have to be. Isla leaned into his warmth, his storm and oak scent grounding her. Because I didn't survive rejection and death and transformation just to watch everything burn. And so Isla Thorne, once the weakest Omega in Silver Peak Pack, now the matriarch of Silverhaven, queen of wolves and protector of the lost, stood watch over her people as the moon crossed the sky. She was no longer the frightened girl who'd been cast out to die. She was power and compassion, strength and wisdom, warrior and healer. She was everything her parents had feared and everything the world needed. And when the blood moon rose and the Forsaken came crawling from their ancient prisons, she would be ready. Because queens don't kneel. They reign. And so Isla's journey from rejected Omega to powerful matriarch shows us that our true strength often lies dormant, waiting for the right catalyst to set it free. Sometimes our greatest betrayals become our most profound blessings. Sometimes the people who cast us out give us exactly what we need to discover who we were always meant to be. What do you think happened when the Forsaken arrived? Could Isla and the Shadow Guard defeat an enemy that had destroyed packs centuries ago? And what about Demon? Did his mark of judgment eventually lead to redemption, or did his pride consume him completely? If you enjoyed this story of transformation, rejection, and rising power, please hit that like button and leave a comment below sharing your favorite moment. Was it when Isla first shifted into her massive wolf form, the confrontation with Vivian, or that final declaration when she claimed her territory and her throne? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next chapter. There are more stories to tell, of the blood moon rising, of ancient enemies awakening, of a queen learning what it truly means to protect those she loves. Thank you for listening to The Alpha King's Pup Went Wild. We'll see you in the next chapter where the real battle begins. Until then, may your inner wolf be strong, your bonds be chosen, and your transformation be magnificent.